exclusive interviews with luxury brand CEOs. Recently, I visited New York and interviewed Gary Vaynerchuk for my upcoming documentary about the future of heritage luxury brands in a millennial world. This has been an incredibly thought-provoking interview, which I decided to share with you all. So here is the full transcript of the interview. Sami Arian. In the past, luxury brands have had the advantage of inheriting their customers through the generations. So people would bring in their sons and grandsons. If wanted to buy luxury watches, wines, cigars, suits, etc., you would often buy what your father recommended. Gary Vaynerchuk, 100%. Sami Arian. But some things have changed now. Firstly, the younger generation that already comes from that affluent background is not necessarily connecting with heritage brands simply because their fathers and grandfathers shopped from them. There is so much noise out there and they are influenced by many other factors. Secondly, the people that are coming into money now, the new generations of entrepreneurs and young people building careers online and with new technologies, they haven't been exposed to those heritage brands. So there's an increasing disconnect between heritage brands and millennials. Why is it that these amazing brands with amazing heritage, history, and authenticity are falling behind? Gary Vaynerchuk. There are many reasons why this transformation is happening. A lot of it is self-inflicted by these brands around their audacity and their unbelievable desire to hold on to something that used to be. And that makes sense. That's an inherent thing, but this is why all empires fall. You get to a place and you want to hold onto the past instead of mapping yourself to the future. We are living through the biggest shift of attention in human history. All the rules are being rewritten because we're putting youth on a pedestal, so tradition is getting hurt by that. In parallel, 22-year-olds are not consuming print ads, and for some ungodly reason, these brands want to continue to put dollars into the places that their grandparents put dollars into. They disrespect places like Instagram and others without properly embracing them. If they do it, and many of them have now finally done it in the last 2 years, even though they should have done it 5 or 7 years ago, they do it in a half-assed nature. A kind of nod to, okay, I'll appease that. I'll check that box. They do not take it seriously, the attention that lives here. They undermine and downplay it. They listen to marketing partners that are holding onto the past and the money they make. When you compare the British, UK, and European markets, it's even worse than in the US, so it's a level of audacity. It's a level of not aligned financial interest because all these brands now are held by big companies and they're trying to make 90-day quarterly returns. There's a lack of investment and there's a lack of education. They don't understand what's happening on Facebook or influencers or Instagram, and they're just misplaying it. And this is not just happening to ultra-luxury. This is the destruction of all of the establishment. We see it in political environments. I love how I have a meeting with a 75-year-old executive from the UK, and the first 30 minutes of the conversation was about Brexit and Trump, and how incredible he found it that it's very clear that these new things have affected these macro-political issues. And then we got to talking about his business and marketing, and he scolded me for 30 minutes telling me that his customer still looks at print. I go, your customer voted for Brexit. Your customer voted for Trump. There's just a stunning hold of romance to the way we did it at the peril of these brands. Some of the greatest brands that have lasted world wars, that have lasted the test of time, are going to disappear in the next decade or two because they are completely not speaking where the end consumer is living. Sami Arian, do you think part of this is because people like yourself don't speak their language? Gary Vaynerchuk. Oh yeah, sure. We don't let the part. First of all, I've got all sorts of extra dynamics because I use these tools to build my brand. And so then I get pushed when they don't like what they hear. And it's not that I'm not empathetic. I understand why they think that. It doesn't mean that I'm gonna be wrong. And so yeah, look, people don't like change and people like the way they grew up. And don't forget who the decision makers are, these marketing dollars on the big companies. These are people who grew up in a different craft. They have a lot of respect for the MBAs and scholars and the things that hang in their rooms. And also there's a big thing that's not talked about, which is most of their media agency partners who are pushing television and print and outdoor banners because that's where the margin is for those media companies. It's not in the best interest of Cartier and Rolex, but it's in the best interest of the media company. And so they'd rather believe a 71-year-old executive who has a financial vested interest in his or her stock than somebody who's talking a little crass, but is telling the truth because it makes them feel better. But they're going to lose. Sami Arian. So would you agree with me that the golden age of advertising, the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s has passed? Gary Vaynerchuk. Look what happened in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and even to the early 2000s was the golden era of television, print, and radio. That was a world where the consumer was there and pictures and videos and written words that fit that medium were perfect. And it was great. It was a lot of fun. Let's not forget that before television, the radio dominated and the people who knew how to write jingles and make sounds had great rewards. We've lived in the TV and print era of the last 50 years, 60 years, and people didn't want to give it up when the internet came along in 95, because that was a long run of 50 years. That's the way it was. Starting in 1995 with Windows 95, the internet became consumerized. Normal people started getting on the internet, and now we're 20 years into that. There's full maturity. Some people are now using it at scale, like we buy things on the internet. The internet controls our attention. Now it's with us at all times. And so the consumer moved. The advertising industry doesn't get to choose. It has to move to where the eyeballs, ears, and attention of the consumer are. 5 major holding companies make billions of dollars and don't want it to change. It's not super complicated. The 2 highest profit margins for holding companies in the advertising agency world are television programmatic banner ads, and that's what they push. Sami Arian. What is the difference between traditional advertising and modern content? Gary Vaynerchuk. The big difference between traditional content or traditional marketing and modern content or marketing is nothing, other than the traditional market wants to make it for places that used to have people's attention, and the new people want to make it for where they believe the people's attention is. And this is not a digital versus traditional game. For example, I day trade attention. So for example, in America, I would buy Super Bowl ads if I'm a high luxury brand, because if you sell in America, everybody in America will know what you stand for in one shot with a Super Bowl ad. And I think that the $7 million price tag is underpriced attention. So this is not about the computer being better than the real world. It's details, but the difference is nothing. You just have to make a great story in the medium that is of the day. You have to make a better ad for a podcast, because now it's podcast and not radio, so you have to understand that the person can rewind it or do something different. Sami Arian. Now being an influencer is turning into a job for a lot of people. Does that mean it's going to saturate the market and the influencers are going to lose their impact? Gary Vaynerchuk. Look, here's how it gets saturated. Not only is it a job, but everybody who's 15 and under wants to be an influencer one day. That is the job, right? It's supply and demand. Of course, it's saturated. Was it better to be an influencer 3 years ago? Yes. Was it better for brands that did influencer marketing 3 years ago? Yes. But there will always be the top 10% of anything, and that's who's going to trade. Thanks for watching. Kindly like and subscribe for more videos. In the comments section of the post, please tell me how many you discovered.